Our first guest tonight comes from Bulgaria. It is the very, very special Alek Popov. Now, Alek, most people don't believe me when I say I love Bulgaria, but it was actually the first country, one of the first countries I went to for the BBC after the revolutions. I know you didn't have a revolution,
really?
But you unfortunately didn't have a revolution, but it was certainly a lot of turmoil and change for you in those early 90s. But you don't actually live in Bulgaria, do you? So you don't love it enough to live there.
I spent quite enough time. You know, and you know, the big change, it coincided with a kind of incident. I lost my father, who used to teach in the US, and it was kind of a, you know, very double loss of security, you know, when everything was gone, you know, the old order, and in the same time I lost, you know, this family security, and I was in charge of my family this time.
This story which you're telling about your father is, of course, reflected in the book that you're presenting here tonight, The Black Box. I didn't realise it was actually an autobiographical story. You can tell us more about that. I just want to tell everybody what the book is called. It is somehow it's got down to that part of the pile. This is this absolutely beautiful cover as well. This is The Black Box by Alek Popov, and it's been published by Peter Owen, and who is now in collaboration with Istros Books. So it's a wonderful marriage of the two great publishers. It's been translated by Daniela and Charles Edward Gill de Mayol de Lupa. So there we are, and supported by the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation. So this book, which we'll talk about it, and then we'll hear you read a little bit about it, a little bit from it. But the book is based on a box of ashes, of the father's ashes. And this box appears in 1991 at the beginning of the book in Bulgaria. It's on a kitchen table, and there are two brothers, and they are told that this box is full of their father's ashes. So your story is this story is your father's story?
Yeah, we really got the box, in fact.
You got a box?
We got the box, yeah. And yeah, but it took me quite a long time, in fact, to distance myself from my personal history, because and to see it in a different way as a tragicomical story, as it is in the book. But I don't think that literature should follow life, you know, so closely. And I knew that if I emerge into the reality, into the real story, it wouldn't work at all. So it took me quite more than actually 10 years to approach this story. And initially, the first edition of the book, I wasn't that happy with it. And when it went through several editions in Germany, in Turkey, in Poland, finally in Italy, and when the time came for the English edition, I thought I should do something. And 7 years later, I did a complete revision.
Really?
Yeah. So it's.
I suppose you're allowed to. It's your book.
Yeah. And it has a different ending. I toiled quite a lot. You know,
so you wrote it. It was published in Bulgarian in 2007.
Yeah.
And it's
7 years later.
So 7 years later.
Yeah.
What?
But it's like in the marriage.
Well, why not change it? But the interesting thing is about this book is that it might seem the way we're talking about it, it's actually quite serious, but it's not. It's a satire. It's a social documentary satire about two countries, about the United States and about Bulgaria. And they couldn't be wider apart, could they?
Yeah, they're quite different. But, you know, part of my family lives there, so I know something about the life in the US. And, yeah, I certainly know how things stand in Bulgaria. And I didn't try to to do an immigrant novel. I deal with this, but they're more like expats, you know, who are trying to adjust themselves, and they are in search for this. They're pushing this American dream, you know, and actually the change in Bulgaria. When it occurred, everything was marked by this kind of dream that everything will be like in America, like in the West,
and you lost a lot. I mean, a lot of Bulgarians left, as you did. I mean, you left. You left actually, Bulgaria.
It's not an immigrant country, but after the change, it became, you know, like the other, like Ireland.
And I remember, huge numbers, but 1.5 million left in a very
almost
very short
2 million.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
yes. I mean,
we have a diaspora, and this is a big team.
Do you live in the States now, or do you live partly in Bulgaria?
I live in Sofia.
In Sofia.
Now, yeah, but I move.
Move around. Yes.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing also about you, your previous life, is you're a diplomat.
I used to be.
You used to be. But that's how you wrote your first novel, which was Mission London, which was based, your first novel in English. You've probably written several before.
It was the last translation of this novel, actually, the latest, in fact. It was translated in almost 16 languages, and then finally in English. It's a bit slow, but luckily
it's always
available.
Strange how it happens, isn't it?
It's written out of my personal experience. You know, I learned how to work with this. But again, it's a fiction. It's not based on something. Just the canvas is very true.
You have to say that, really, because a lot of people in that probably sort of recognise themselves. And you kept saying, no, it's a satire, it's fiction, it's not real.
Yeah, but they evolved. You know, with the course of time, they became kind of archetype of the transition.
So did you, I mean, have you, I know that, in fact, this is true also. In Bulgaria, the very first place I went to was a place called the House of Humour and Satire. And it exists in a town called Gabrovo. And I was there for the BBC, and I went there and I made a programme about the House of Humour and Satire. And I know that Bulgarians have a really fantastic sense of humour, and a very interesting sense of humour.
It's kind of self-depreciating.
It's definitely self-deprecating, definitely.
Yeah.
But this is a very funny book, so you didn't have to bend over backwards to be funny. It came naturally to you.
It came out of the situation, you know.
Yeah.
I just followed the logic of this. I didn't want to be extremely funny, but it has somehow happened. I explored the situation. It comes when you explore the logic of the action. Sometimes you end up with kind of absurdity and humor.
So what do you think? I mean, just before we sort of focus in on that book a little bit more, what do you think, you know, of the novels you've written now? Because you've written quite a lot. You've been writing a long time now. What do you think you're trying to get at all the time? Is it always about? Are there always two sides to every story you write? Because you've got the two brothers, you've got the two parallel stories, you've got the two countries in the black box. There are some contrasts all the way through. So,
We're writing a kind of historical novel about twins.
Historical novel about twins?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's set in the Second World War.
Now?
No, in the second, yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
See, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I kind of, I didn't want to have, you know, this double character because it makes your life harder. In fact.
Yeah, in fact, it is quite difficult to have two characters. Gabriela
anyway,
Babnik has two characters.
I ended up with twins, two beautiful girls from an affluent bourgeois family during the Second World War, and they joined the partisan rebels. And there were lots of adventures, of course, and at the end of the book, one of them turned out to be in London again, happily married, and the other is working in the Bulgarian embassy in the 50s. And
that was probably a dim and dark place, and I can just picture that Bulgarian embassy in the 50s.
It's the novel ends with the death of Stalin.
Yeah, happy times.
Yeah, in the 53rd, and I'm exploring, you know, this but it's, again, a humorous book. It's very funny in the way Monty Python deals with history. You know, and it was something very unusual for Bulgaria because this partisan movement used to be kind of sacred thing.
It was very famous, the Bulgarian partisan.
Yeah, but they used it as a propaganda tool, actually, which completely biased the reality of this movement. But I did some strong researches before writing this.
And you enjoy all that as well, too, the research.
Oh, this is the most pleasant part.
Not sitting on stage having to talk about it all. I know that's the worst part for some. Anyway, this book, The Black Box, it's about Bulgaria. It's really the story of Bulgaria in the last 15, 20 years. And a little bit about the States, but it's mostly about these two brothers, the two parallel stories, Nidko and Angel, and Ned. He becomes Ned, and Ned goes off to the United States and becomes a successful Bulgarian abroad, SBA. And in fact, acronyms play an enormous part in this novel. I wrote down a few of them because I didn't understand all of them. But there are all kinds of acronyms. There's the SBA, the Successful Bulgarians Abroad. There's the NSAB, the Non-Successful Asses Stuck in Bulgaria. There's the CSB, Club of Successful Bulgarians. And the CSD, the Club of the Successful Dead, and they all appear. There's also a character called Kurtz. There is a car mechanic called Ezra Pound. You get the gist. This is the kind of wonderful writing that comes from Alek. And the story though is that these two brothers, they have this box remains there throughout the whole novel because they're trying to find out what happened to their father, how he died. And so Ned goes off to the States, becomes very successful, makes a lot of money, and Angel, he is left at home and is not particularly successful as a writer and a publisher. Publisher, yeah. I think that might be heartfelt as well. But and then they end up together in the States because Angel manages to get through on the green card lottery. They have all kinds of adventures. It's a wonderful adventure story. There are lots of travels across, in a sort of battered old car across the United States. Is this what happened to you? I mean, did you go make this journey across the States?
Not exactly this one, but I did travel around, and I have a very clear recollection of our last car, of our family, which was really very big, and I like these old American cars. They somehow are very picturesque. And there are some details, there is really a prize in America, after my father's name.
Is there?
Yeah.
So it's because the father...
His American colleagues did it.
Your father was also lecturing
He was professor of math.
He was professor of maths, and the father here is the professor of literature?
No, math.
Of math, also math, sorry. Okay, I was trying to get some literature.
Yeah.
Professor of maths, and so you've kept it very much a family story.
Yeah, quite a lot, but the story itself, it's fictional. Yeah. So I picked some details that I put and that I couldn't escape from them. But the whole story of this book is kind of an effort to distance myself in order to write a proper story. If we are too much involved, emotionally, probably it wouldn't work so well, I think.
And it's very difficult to write about grief and the loss of anyone.
Especially in a humorous way.
Especially in a humorous way. It really is. It's difficult to write at any time, I think.
Yeah, I think in every tragedy, there is kind of something absurd and something comical. Even in Shakespeare, in the Shakespeare tragedies, there are so many comical elements. Yes. They go together like in life.
Absolutely. Alek, would you be kind of to read a little bit from your novel?
Yeah.
Give us a flavour.
I prepared you a short paragraph.
Thank you very
much.
Read that would be lovely. Thank you.
Good.
So Alek Popov is going to read from The Black Box.
It's about the dog walkers in Central Park. The professional dog walkers could be spotted from way off. They had weary tenant calves. They were walking purposefully without looking around. They were pulled along by a bunch of specimens of different breeds. Compared with them, I was just strolling around. The pincher had a repellent effect on passerbys, so it could hardly be any kind of opener for exciting introductions. It made me look like a wonker with a taste for antique porno postcards. In other ways, the job wasn't difficult. Zucchero was ticking along in front of me on its thin legs. We walked around the green and headed for the reservoir. At one point, the creature stopped, bent its back like a camel, and produced a small green sheet. I hadn't taken more than 5 steps when I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, sir, you with the dog." As Zucchero finished his business, a giant policeman had appeared as if out of thin air. The end of his nightstick was pointing to the microscopic pile at his feet, and I shrugged nonchalantly. "You just broke the law, sir." "Really? What did I do?" I felt a bit awkward. "Your dog crapped in the alley." "I can't forbid him," I replied. "Do you know how many dogs are in New York?" "I guess a lot." "Hundreds of thousands. If all of the owners followed the logic of your behavior, sir, we would be in shit up to our ears." I looked around as though surrounded by piles of dog manure. "But we aren't," he continued seriously, "because we obey the law." "Look, sir," I said, "I arrived in the States recently, and while I have a certain idea of the basic moral norms on which public order is based, I haven't learned the details attendant to the local system." He stared at me aghast. "Pick up your shit, son," said little voice. Bystanders were already gathering. "Did you hear what the lady said?" frowned the policeman. "Do you have a little bag?" "Nobody told me I had to." I shook my head. "Well, I'm telling you, Resolution E 1999 the City Council, you are obliged to always carry a little bag and a trowel when you take your dog for a walk. You put the shit in that little bag and throw it in the nearest trash can." "Okay, I'll bear this in mind. Thank you for enlightening me. And now clean up your shit." "But I don't have a bag, sir." "I shall have to fine you $100, sir, if you leave it on the path. America is a clean country, son." I looked around, but I didn't see anything appropriate to pick the damn thing up with. I didn't spot any waste bin either. The pincher was sniffing its shiny excrement grumpily. "Go on, eat it," I prayed, but nobody heard me. I definitely didn't want to give up $100. I reached out to pick a large leaf from the nearest bush. "Don't touch the flowers, sir." "But it's only a bush." "What a destructive element," comments echoed. "Leave the wildlife alone, or I shall have to arrest you," the keeper of public order growled through his teeth. "Fuck you," I said to myself. I took my wallet and pulled out a $1 bill. I made a funnel out of it. I kneeled and looked at myself in his shiny jack boots and folded the sheet in God we trust. Finally, I opened my pocket wide and dropped it in. "Happy now?" "Good day, sir," he grinned. Thank you.